Do you have a story to share with the world? Of course you do. We all have stories to share. An Anchor podcast allows you to share your interests in a way that connects to others all across the globe. If you have been considering starting your own podcast and don't know where to begin, Anchor makes it easy to record, edit, and publish with the click of a button. You can even add music. Whether it's crime dramas, self-improvement, paranormal adventures, or tips about parenting, you too can share your unique imprint on the world. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. You've got this. I believe in you. Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. I am delighted to discuss the topics today with a new guest speaker that I have on the show. Her name is Dyan Ferguson, and she is an intuitive transformational coach. Welcome, Dyan.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
We have a lot of really fun topics to discuss today, including intuition, subconscious mind, healing past trauma, a whole variety of delicious things to talk about today. So I wanted to start off with Dyan discussing what is intuition. Oftentimes, many of us we all have this built-in mechanism to tap into, and many times we don't even understand this very beautiful tool that we have built into our human body. So Dyan, what is intuition? Being an intuitive transformational coach, how would you explain intuition?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you wanted to talk about this topic. It's been really important to me for a really, really long time. And, you know, we live in such a crazy, busy world. It just feels like things are speeding up all the time. And there's so many possibilities for distraction. I know you've talked a lot about that. And cell phones, social media, we're just so busy, and what that creates is just so much. I just call it psychic, just clutter in the mind. Our minds just get so busy that, you know, essentially we start to just lose touch with ourselves and our own deepest longings and our deepest knowings. And so I just, that's kind of the environment that we're living in now. But what intuition is, you know, we have our mind, our logical mind that helps us solve problems, figure out what to do in in moments. But we actually have so much more than that. We have this wisdom that I believe is connected to our heart, that I also believe can connect to just the consciousness, the highest consciousness that is here, that is creating everything that is. So we can actually connect into that. But all the psychic clutter or lots and lots of thinking and trying to figure things out actually just blocks that. It just sort of covers it up. So we have access to this amazing wisdom, and it's just so much more powerful and intelligent than anything, or beautiful. I love my little mind, thank you, but it's so much more powerful than anything my mind could come up with. It's just a matter of kind of clearing out a little bit of space, and to some degree just kind of learning how to connect to that. So
I love that, and I've heard it kind of referenced as the whisper of the soul, and I love that because, you know, oftentimes I know for me, when I'm out in nature and it's peaceful and it's quiet, that's when I can really hear my soul speak to me. I can hear that higher consciousness, that higher self, you know, tap in. I know, you know, right before bedtime, right when I get into that, you know, that beautiful theta state, and, or even when I first wake up in the morning, those are the times when I know personally my intuition is speaking the loudest to me. And I think it's crucial that you mentioned distractions, because you know, there's so many distractions in the world that are making it difficult for us to tap into our inner wisdom, our inner knowledge, our inner GPS system, you know, I like to call it. And with that intuition, it can come, you know, and I know for all of us, it's different. Being an empath, I would, like you said, pick up on a lot of other people's energies and a lot of the collective thoughts and energies. And I think as empaths, part of our role is to learn how to master that, how to master and discern, you know, what is ours and what is someone else's that we may be picking up on. Because oftentimes that leads to mistrust in our own intuition, is not having a good grounding or a good firm standing on, is that my inner voice speaking, or is that, something outside of me? So I think, when it comes to intuition, it really is getting into that state of connecting with that higher consciousness in a way that you are not distracted, because
Yeah.
distraction is a huge factor in making it difficult to connect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think it can just come through at any point in time, but when there's just so much distraction and clutter in our minds, then it can't. Now we really have to make time to sit down and intentionally connect.
Yeah. So you have worked, studied in meditation for many years. Do you have any tips or tools to help people get to that point where they can connect with their intuition, where they can release those distractions? Is there anything that you can share with people that are new to tapping into their intuition?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So I've actually taught classes on this for years because I'm so passionate about it. And I'll also just say I used to call my class Intuition on Demand because I really want people to hear that we don't have to wait for it to just accidentally, synchronistically just drop in. We can actually intentionally connect to it at any point in time with any question, with anything that we want to understand better. And I would say, the two main things are intention. So just a sincere desire, intention to connect to that, and practice. So again, it's back to this, we think there is this thought out there, right, that people are just special people have it. Or I just hear this so often, I can't predict when it's going to drop in. But if we practice, and I suggest to people, just take 15 minutes. You don't need to be a master meditator. Just take 15 minutes a day to get quiet and practice listening. And the thing about intuition is, and I know that this will resonate with you, it's a different kind of listening. So when we're listening to others and we're actively listening, that's a great thing. But this is more of a surrender. So it's more, can I ask my question, take some deep breaths, and just surrender into whatever arises without trying to reach for something, because that can actually get in the way a little bit. But what I'd love to show you, since you asked me, is, I mean, I'm so passionate about this topic. I've taught classes for years. I actually had a deck of cards designed, the
Love
intuitive
it.
living cards. So it is, there are 62 cards in the deck. And so you can just pull cards, to get some guidance for the day, but how they're actually intended to be used is in a particular order. So it takes you through a whole process
Cool.
of setting up a daily practice, connecting to intuitive centers. We all receive information in different ways. So I like to just people to know what they all are, what the possibilities are. And then I've got some cards in there that talk about some beginner practices, intermediate practices, advanced practices. My favorite one, 7 ways to befriend fear, because fear can come up
It
when
totally
we're,
does. Hmm.
yeah, stopping and slowing down. So that's probably my favorite part of the deck.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that. I love how you brought up, we all receive information differently.
yeah.
And I've noticed this with several, just chatting with several of my friends or people I come in contact with. The way that I receive information is usually through my clairsentience, which is my feeling, or even my clairaudience. I'll hear things. Some people will get it in their mind's eye, different pictures or images, or just a gut feeling. It's very
Yeah.
subtle when it comes through oftentimes, but once you practice it, and I love that, it's like practicing anything, an instrument, a sport, anything. Yes, you may be born with these amazing gifts, but oftentimes you need to practice it to fine tune it, to get
Hmm.
to get better at it. And that's
Exactly.
exactly how our intuitive gifts are, right? It's
Yeah.
just, they're built in. We just have to learn how to use the tools and listen. I love that too. We're so accustomed to listening to respond, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
And when we get into that meditative state, or just that space of actively listening to our intuition, it can be tough because we're so used to having an external reaction, to things, where then now you're in the internal and you're listening. You're in this place of surrendering in that solitude. and those little tiny voices that come through, and I know with me, I joke with my friends, I have these conversations
Yeah.
in my head when, when I'm in that meditative state. It's like you have your kind of your egoistic side, and then I've got my, intuitive side. Like you
Yeah.
can hear them bantering
Right.
back and forth, and it could be that subconscious and that conscious mind, having that conversation about, hey, this is a pattern, for you, or hey, let's break this pattern. Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to break this pattern. Oh, how far back does this pattern go?
Exactly.
So when we talk about intuition, I would love, if you don't mind, pulling a card,
Sure.
for the group, and just giving us an example of, one of the
Okay.
cards in the deck.
Okay. So I pulled them out already. They're big. I've already shuffled them. So let's see. I'm just holding the intention that I'm going to pull something that's of highest and greatest support for the audience that's listening at any point that you're listening. Okay. Oh, I love, love, love this card. And so the way the
I just
deck
got a
is
buzz.
set
I
up-
didn't even see the card, but I got a buzz.
yeah. A friend of mine who's an amazing fine art photographer takes photos of flowers. So these are mostly close-up pictures of flowers. And so we have a card, and it tells you, it might be a little bit hard to read. This is from the series of 4 common mistakes that we make with our intuition. And this card is called the mistaking fear for intuition. But what I actually did, because I just really just had so much to give, each card has an explanation on the back as well, just to give you more information. So I'm going to read this. So one very common mistake is thinking your fear is an intuitive warning not to do something. I hear this all the time.
Yes.
But fear is separate from intuition. If you feel fear, that is just fear arising in response to a thought. See if you can hear your intuition underneath the fear. Sometimes our intuition says no or asks us to be careful. Sometimes fear arises in response to intuition. So practice listening to your fear and finding its intended message.
Wow. I think you pulled the best card out of the whole, out of the whole deck for this particular time in everyone's lives. I feel like, and when I sit, I encourage people to sit with their emotions, and when things start to bubble up, to really feel it in the body. And, at least in my experience, when I feel fear, I feel it in my body. I can feel panicky, or maybe my heart feels restricted, or my muscles tense up, or, that gut, that kind of knot in your gut, where intuition doesn't feel that way, right? Intuition
Exactly.
peaceful and loving, and in the right way, the right path, So when you are observing those emotions that are coming up, fear, guilt, shame, whatever it may be, you will sense it in the body through restriction, through tightening, certain things, where intuition is much more flowing and free, and free. And it's really learning how to also not only listen to your intuition, but feel your intuition in the body, right?
Yeah. And I'd love to give a little example, because this is just another thing that I've heard a lot of times. So someone might be connecting to their intuition. How do I bring my life into greater alignment with my purpose, with my values? And then we might suddenly start to think, oh, my work is no longer in alignment. And suddenly some fear and anxiety comes up. And then we think, oh, my work is bad. Yes, work is bad. I must go quit my job. And so what I like to say is your intuition is never going to ask you to step off a cliff. Mm-hmm. Now, it might genuinely be saying, wow, work is not really in alignment. But that fear that came up, that's a response to, oh my gosh, if I quit my job tomorrow and I don't have income, how am I going to pay my rent?
Yes.
So we have to separate those two things. Is work in alignment for me? And if I want to leave work, because I also like to say there's wisdom in our fear. So yes, I do need to be able to pay my rent. So I don't want to quit my job tomorrow. How can I now approach this in a way that just really serves me in every way?
Yes, I love that. I love that. And it's so imperative to, feel into that. And I think as a society, we've been so trained to not feel, to kind of disconnect from that.
Yeah.
Where now we're beginning to move back into, it's time for us to be in our bodies. It's time for us to feel those emotions and to move through them, to understand when our intuition is speaking, to us, to discern, whether that's the right way we want to go. But
Mhm.
it's important to understand that our soul always wants us on the highest and best path, right? So no matter what choices we make, whether, we are following our intuition or not, we're always going to, be led to where we're meant to be led, right? So we're always going to be led to a journey or through a lesson or an experience. And, sometimes we take the harder road than not. And I know with me, the more I listen to my intuition, the smoother it is.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000%.
Yeah, so it's like we don't have to be living in the riptide all the time. We
Yeah,
can be riding the waves, right, on top. And I think with
exactly.
a lot of the shifts going on in humanity right now, there's a lot of emotions bubbling to the surface for many.
Hmm.
That one of the best things that we can do is to sit in solitude and to just sit in
Yeah,
our own energy and to feel it, feel it and
yeah.
process it, right?
Exactly. I couldn't agree a thousand. I couldn't agree more. I agree 1,000%. But yeah, and I know that experience of feeling afraid of our big feelings. But I think for some people, depending where you are in the journey, that we have to actually get to a point where we realize, oh, that's actually what I'm afraid of is the big feeling. So I think that's one of the benefits of meditation is just learning it's just a feeling, and it won't kill me,
Huh?
and it's probably going to pass if I'm able to just sit with it, sit still for just a little bit, and just let it be seen. I mean, the other thing too, so, with this, there's the fear of feelings. They are uncomfortable, they can be inconvenient. But you mentioned earlier the whisper of the soul. I think these are whispers from our deepest being also, and
Very true.
so these feelings want to be seen and heard. And so it's just so that act of sitting down and being willing to feel them, it's really profound. It's just letting all of myself really be alive, be present, be witnessed, be experienced, which is what we're here
Absolutely.
for. So
Yeah, and I think, sometimes if you don't listen to the whisper, it'll get louder and
yes,
louder and louder.
exactly.
And then your body is screaming at you like,
Yeah,
stop it,
yeah,
so it's like, and I
yeah,
think my younger version of myself would have gotten to the point where it was just screaming at me, through a speakerphone. And I was still
yeah,
not listening. Where my more expanded consciousness version of myself, I guess that's what I call it, understands that, ooh, I'm feeling a little pain there. I need to sit with that for a minute and see, and oftentimes it'll move through. And that's great because the body just, it speaks to us. And when
mhm,
we speak back, it's a very interactive, avatar, so to speak, so let's dive a little bit into the subconscious mind. I know that you and I both work with people in these aspects. And this is an area that for me, I was working in healthcare for, roughly 15 years. And I was working with patients who had been declared brain dead or had lost consciousness.
mhm,
And it's always fascinating, to me to learn more about the subconscious mind and different ways that we can reprogram it, because I was working from a physical aspect with patients, and now I'm working on a more energetic, emotional, a deeper aspect. So let's talk a little bit about that in the subconscious mind. So you work with people on a variety of levels to help reprogram or repattern the subconscious mind. What can you
right.
share, with us
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, so I think I like to call it technology. It's
Yes.
just getting better and better and more powerful and more well known, but this really is the most miraculous, but also fastest path to feeling good, to feeling some peace, ease, and calm in our lives that I've ever seen. And what I love about it is it's also based 100% on neuroscience. So
This is awesome.
there's right, so studies show that that it's possible. Basically, the science is that it's possible to change memories. And I like to just say to people, just notice when you're telling a story. Just notice if you find yourself, because if you pay attention, you'll find we slightly change the story, and that means in that moment we're actually changing a memory.
Yes.
So basically, but when it comes to this work, it's we can use this in a much more strategic way that's really, really impactful. So the one thing that I've learned since I've been learning and practicing this method, which is the MAP healing method, make anything possible, MAP healing method. I didn't fully understand the degree to which everything we do is governed by memories. Somebody said this once and I love it. The mind is just kind of lazy. So it always references memories to decide what to do, similar situations from the past to decide what to do now. So where this becomes a problem is if we have trauma in our past. Trauma basically causes us to dissociate.
Mhm.
So now we're referencing a dissociated moment and we're getting dissociated again now. So that's a problem. And just difficult moments, it may or may not be traumatic, but if something was difficult and so a lot of this started in our really early formative years. We had
Of
a
course.
difficult,
Mhm.
scary experience, and we decided then how to respond. But we were probably 5 years old when we
And we
decided
were
how to
little, and,
respond.
and it's like we're looking at this monster that now when we're an adult, we go back, it probably wouldn't be as big of
Right.
a monster.
But we're still referencing that 5-year-old decision. That's just how the mind works.
Mhm.
So there's nothing wrong with it. But so, yes, we're using 5-year-old logic a lot of the time to decide how to respond now. So now we can use these new methods strategically to say, I see these patterns of response in my life now, just so ways I respond in certain situations and it doesn't serve me, or recurring emotions and feelings that just aren't pleasant, that are uncomfortable. So we can go back now, change those earlier memories, neutralize them, change the beliefs that were formed. And this is how we create a new experience right now.
That
More
is so
ease, I can
cool.
respond in a mature way, I can make better choices. It's very, very powerful.
It is powerful. And when you start repatterning and reprogramming the subconscious mind, it's sometimes it can be pretty obvious when it happens, and other times it's a little slower to transform. At
Yeah.
least that's been my experience, because I know, working with some of my clients, they're like, I don't feel anything, after this, and then
Right.
2 days later they're like, I'm a wreck, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So however the energy works. So can you explain the map process a little
Sure.
bit so we have a better
Yeah.
understanding of how it works?
Sure. And I'm going to talk about it in the context of trauma because it can work with trauma, and this is what's miraculous to me. So obviously it can also work with anything less than trauma. But so essentially so how I might set this up with as a client, we might decide that there's a memory, there's an old experience that is still affecting how I show up today. And so we want to work with that. So I'll just say this, the beauty of MAP, and you'll see as I describe how we do this, is you no longer have to sit there like you did in traditional therapy and relive and
Yeah,
talk
the
through that
drama.
traumatic event. It's
Mhm.
not necessary. Yeah, you know that too from tapping.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so what we do though is, we get the client into this really relaxed state. So that's important, a safe, relaxed state. And we just gently start to reference the memory. We just have to bring up a little bit of the feeling just by talking a little bit about it. So now it's been brought, so just using the language of neuroscience, we've now activated a memory
Uh-huh.
and brought it into what we call the active experience. And when a memory is in our active experience, we can change it. When it's dormant, we can't. So we do
Okay.
need to bring it up. And then once we bring up a memory, there's something called the window of reconsolidation,
Uh-huh.
which means there's a period of time in which we can change the memory. And so what we want to do is we do this very intentionally, and I will already have decided with the client. So what do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? But so now that we keep the client very relaxed, and then I give a series of commands to the client's subconscious mind to say, this is a traumatic memory, and please neutralize the big feelings around this memory, neutralize the decisions, the beliefs that were formed in that moment. And then we can actually even give the suggestion to the subconscious mind. Now replace those
Uh-huh.
feelings and decisions with empowered, more mature thoughts and feelings that represent current level of consciousness. So it's a very, very gentle, very, in fact, quite soothing process to go through, unlike every other trauma modality I've ever
Yeah,
experienced.
it's traumatizing.
And then what can happen? So it depends on the size of the trauma that we're working with. There are things that we can shift in one session, but usually with a trauma, if it's a big trauma, and this is something else the mind does, it tends to reinforce painful experiences. Have you noticed that? We have one
Yes.
painful experience and then we recreate it. The mind
Yes.
does that. So then that might take a little bit longer to work through that. But typically after one MAP session, say we might be working on a memory, the client will very quickly say, huh, and usually this is the response I get, huh, I can't, this is usually how
I
it
don't
goes.
remember why I'm here.
Well, actually, that happens too. Or they'll say, "I can't remember. I can't. I can't." No, they'll say, I can't find the feeling." And then
Uh-huh.
that's confusing. I
Yeah.
can't. I was angry or I was hurt a minute ago, but I can't find it. And you're kind of trying to grab at it, but I can't find it.
Mhm.
And so it takes getting used to, and then you quickly get used to it, and it's a relief that I can still fully see and explain that memory, but now it doesn't bring up any pain. And so
I love
now
that.
I can fully, this is the other thing too, because trauma remains unintegrated, right? As long as we don't do anything with it. Now I can integrate it. Now it's not going to be affecting my day to day life and consciousness and choices. So,
Yeah, because it's like when that traumatic experience happens, it gets trapped. It gets
yeah,
trapped in the
exactly.
body and the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind creates a snapshot at that moment. And like you said, every time a similar situation happens throughout your life that kind of is similar to that original traumatic experience, it
Right.
creates another fractal, so to speak. I don't
Yeah.
know how to explain it, but it creates another snapshot and another snapshot. And so I know with me, oftentimes too, trying to get back to the original traumatic, event and
Yeah.
really working on the programming of that event will
Mm.
then clear everything else in between oftentimes.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned that people will literally forget, and that's happened
Yeah.
to me during certain EFT tapping sessions. Is they're at a 10, they'll mark it as a 10 when they first get here, and then as we go through, by the end they're like, I don't really know why I was even upset about
Yeah.
that. So it's so cool to hear about other different modalities, and my intention is to bring other modalities to people because not everybody resonates with certain modalities, and it's so important to use your intuition, right, and follow where you're feeling guided to go. I'll often have times people reach out to me, can you muscle test to see if I can need a session with you or and I'm like, no, I want to send that back to you to empower yourself, to ask your inner guidance, where do I need to go, what do I need to do to heal this emotional pain, this physical pain, this energetic pain, whatever it may be. And so it sounds like the map process is very similar in that it's getting to the root cause of
Exactly.
the,
Yeah.
the trauma, the pain, the issue. So
Exactly.
um, when you're working with these patients, how long do these sessions usually last? What is there an average time, or are they all different?
There's a lot of variety depending what we're working on, but a typical map session might be about 90 minutes. What I like to do is I like to spend the first 30 minutes just coaching. So let's really talk about what's going on in your life. What is the pattern? How is this affecting your life? So it serves multiple purposes. People just have a little more awareness, but it also starts bringing it up into the active experience, which is what we need for the map sessions.
Absolutely.
So, and I thought I would just mention, so I mean, my favorite context to do this work and what I've just gotten really passionate about, because we can do map with anything. We can do it with, food choices, as I said, trauma, reactivity. We can do it with anything, but my favorite context is relationships. So, as someone who struggled with relationships, I'm sure many people listening to this know that experience. I've been really passionate about just trying to decode that. And, after having done this work for so long, right, and just having said it myself, hearing people say, why can't I attract the right partner? I love working with people to decode that. So first is just decoding, what's happening in you that's attracting certain partners. What is your subconscious mind actually trying to resolve? Because that's what's happening. It's not about the person over there. It's something that some part of you is trying to resolve. So, and then the thing with the map. So this is what just gets me so excited. So I've been doing this kind of coaching for a long time. What makes relationships so challenging? What makes them fail? Going through that pain of a failed relationship. We can understand it all we want, and that really, really helps. But until we go back and really heal and clear those early childhood wounds, that's actually what's creating the issues, nothing's really going to change. So now I get to do relationship work with MAP and clear those early childhood wounds that just now just gives us so much more capacity and self-awareness inside of our relationships. So, oh, so your question, sorry, was about timing. So
No,
when
that's
I
amazing.
do, so some things you can do in one session, but what I really love to do is just completely help somebody completely transform their identity in relationships. And so I like to have about 3 months to work with somebody to do that, because it's a really deep work and process. And I like to just be able to witness and support a full transformation in identity.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And I think too, I look at it like timelines as well. Like when you transform you might be living on a certain path or a certain timeline. And when you dive into that subconscious and start repatterning and reprogramming that, then you oftentimes will quantum leap into a new path or a new timeline. And I have seen that for myself. I've seen that for my clients. And I'm sure you've seen that, with some of your clients. It's like, they're a totally different person, when you first started with them. And then after your, 3 months or however many sessions, you're like, whoa, who is that person? And I know I've had clients like that too. You're just like, it really is that their belief system in it too. I think that plays a role. It doesn't have to, but I do feel that if they're ready to heal and to move forward on that path and to dive deep into those past feelings or relationships or whatever has created their distress, if they're ready to dive into that, then it just works so much faster, because when they connect with us, it's like, okay, I believe in you. Do you believe in you? Okay, you believe in you too. Let's make this happen, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have just recently launched a program this past week. Do you want to talk about that? Would you like to share that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I do this twice a year. I might, over time, it might be offered more often than that, but right now it's twice a year. I call it returning to love. It's coming back to feeling whole, happy, and healthy in love, just right here. So the whole program is about, what's the word? Just getting us centered in the knowing and the experience that we are whole and can be happy and healthy in love. And it's exactly what I was describing a couple minutes ago. It's a 3-month process of going through and looking at who and how have we been showing up in relationships. That's all we need to know. We don't need to know anything about the other person.
That's so true.
We just need to know who have we been showing up as, how, what dynamics have we been co-creating, what patterns do I see across my relationships. And that starts to bring us back to the beliefs, the identity that's here that we need to transform if we want to transform the relationship. So,
yes.
So it's this deep dive, this very gentle, self-loving deep dive without blaming anybody, not ourselves, not our parents, not our partners. Just, we're all doing the very best that we can, but we need to unravel it, and my favorite sort of byline for this thing is we think it's a mystery, right? Why relationships, when they work and why they don't work, it's not a mystery. So once you've done this program with me, you will see it is not a mystery. We connect all the dots. But again, what makes me so excited about this program now is then we do MAP sessions every week in the program, and people have access to MAP sessions in between. So, those early childhood memories of, mom wasn't emotionally available. Maybe she was really anxious. Maybe she had her own anxiety, the untreated anxiety, or maybe she was working a lot and just unavailable. So these things that can make a child feel a little bit unseen, not good enough, not loved. So that's just one example of course, thousands,
of course,
of things that can happen to us in childhood. But that shows up in our relationships. This feeling of, I'm not sure if I'm quite lovable. There might be something wrong with me. That it affects who we attract and how vulnerable we're willing to be, how transparent we're willing to be, how much risk we're willing to take, how deeply we're willing to step in. And everything I just named, right? We need all of those at 100% for a relationship to feel really good. So we spent 12 weeks uncovering and then really healing those early childhood wounds. So now you're just a whole different person by the time you come out of the program.
So when you say relationships, this isn't just a spousal relationship. This could be a relationship with your parents, with your friends, with your boss, with your teacher,
Absolutely.
whoever, right? This is just relationships
Absolutely.
in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Yeah.
So
And kind of my favorite client. So I mean, I think I started this program thinking it was going to be mostly single people saying, "Why can't I find somebody?" But I actually have quite a number of people who join the program who say, "I'm just not happy in my marriage."
mhm.
And right now I have a very high track record of people by the end of the program. Oh, it makes me a little emotional. Of people saying, "Wow, I see my marriage and my partner in a whole new light."
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because the work, we have to work on our internal because it mirrors back to us externally. So
Yeah.
once we can, you know, bring it to the active scene or bring it from the subconscious to the conscious and really fully recognize, you know, this is the energy that we're rippling out, right?
Exactly.
Out of our bodies. This is why we're attracting this. This is
Yes.
why, right? So
Exactly.
it's really
Yes.
bringing, you know, going through, it's almost like you see like a, you know, an electronic file, like do, 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 and you're just picking
Mm.
out, okay, here's the memory. We're going to work on this one.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see how this shifts your external environment. So it's
Exactly.
fascinating when we work on the internal and then you actually get to see the external. So when you have,
Mm.
you know, you're working with people who are in a struggling marriage and they actually look back and say, okay, this is how I respond to things because of the way my mom may have responded to my dad or vice versa,
Yeah.
or, you know, whatever happened in my childhood. This has been a pattern for me that I've learned, you know, throughout my years. And now I'm subconsciously sending out this signal or this broadcast,
Yeah.
and that is what's magnetizing to me. So it's almost like working in the subconscious. It's also important to understand that law of attraction as well, because
Yes.
right, what you're putting out, you're
Exactly.
receiving.
Exactly. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think that's important for people to understand. You know, everybody looks at law of attraction like, I want to attract money, I want to attract money, but there's so many other things that you can apply to the law of vibration and the law of attraction that can play into our healing process and our relationships and the way that we show up in the world and then the way that people react to us by the
Exactly.
way we show up in the world, right?
Yeah.
So is this
Exactly.
program launched? Is it ready? You know, can people sign up for this program now? Is it ready to go? Or
Well, it's actually we're actually running the program right now. So right now we'll be getting ready for a second launch in the summer. But what this might be a good time for is to perhaps have an introduction to the MAP method and
yeah,
experience it for if people are feeling that their curiosity is a little piqued, a little bit of an intuitive nudge. So it just might be a variety of factors coming together. So I would say it's just if you feel that little nudge, reach out, and I'd love to give you an introduction to the MAP method, see how it feels for you. Is it something that you feel drawn to do? And so I would love to give people an experience of the MAP method. And if you are, so again, we can use this for any challenge in your life. It's just that relationships are my passion. So if that's someone else is listening and that's their path as well, this is a good time to get an experience of it, maybe start to doing some discovery work, and then jump into the program this summer.
absolutely. That's exciting. And I think, you know, given the circumstances we've all been in the last couple of years, we're probably learning a lot about the people that we live with or the people that we're surrounded with. And it's bringing a lot of these things up to the surface for healing, for deep
Yeah.
healing. So I think it's important for us to understand that, you know, if you are on that path of a rocky relationship, there are alternatives. There are things that you can do to work through, you know, that trauma, that pain, that disconnect that you may be
Exactly.
having with your loved ones, whoever that, you know, that may be. And so, Dyan, if someone wants to reach out to you to learn more about MAPS or to sign up for this program, how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, great. So I'm sort of everywhere, but the easiest thing is my website, which is just dyanferguson.com. There is a place on the website to contact me directly, but I'm also on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, So I'll give you all those links. That's you can probably I'm quite easy to find if you Google me, and I'd love to hear from people. And I think I'd also just really like to plant the seed that we are living in intense times. We just barely we aren't out of this pandemic yet. This has been a really intense experience, and now for those of us who are watching international news, there's more intensity, and that will is if that's getting agitated and amplified in us, that's gonna show up in our relationships at home, at work. And so I just want to plant the seed that what we can do with modalities like the map healing method, but also EFT, is just as we just work with some of that charge inside and the source of that charge, it gives us so much more capacity to be with what's happening in the world around us, what's happening in our relationships at home or at work. So if it's feeling really amplified and agitated for people, it doesn't have to be that way. Just because crazy things are happening in the world, we can get centered and feel a much, much greater sense of ease. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's just
I think you're spot on with that. And it's like I always think in analogies, they just kind of pop into my mind. Okay. And it's like if you have a really, really cluttered closet, it's really difficult to open up the door. It's really difficult to pull things out because everything just falls out and there's not enough space. But once you actually take the time to organize that closet, set an intention on how you want that closet to look and feel when you open the door, then it's just a much less stressful experience of having to deal with whatever is in that closet, right? So it's just looking at the subconscious mind like the closet, going in there and reorganizing a little bit, reprogramming. I liked how you mentioned that we command the subconscious mind. That's so important. That it's waiting for us to tell it what to do, right? So we are in charge of our subconscious mind.
Well, we're actually telling it what to do all the time. We just might not be doing that intentionally. So we just need to bring intention to that.
Yes, bringing the intention to it and bringing it from the subconscious to the conscious and saying, hey, subconscious, I'm recognizing this pattern. And this isn't going to play for me anymore. We're going to take, the way I explain the EFT tapping is it's like, and this is similar with maps. It's like you have a record player and it starts to skip. Oftentimes people will want to pick up the needle and put it back down and then the record will play and then it may skip later on. What we are doing is we're actually taking the record off the record player and putting on a new record, a new identity, a new program, however you want to explain it. So it's so powerful to dive in there. And like we talked about earlier, we are functioning from a 5-year-old's viewpoint. Oftentimes, many of us are. And going back and, facing whatever that experience was in those younger years that, when we're in that theta brainwave state, we're just observing and learning how to be, how to be in our environment, how to socialize with people, that when we, later on in our adult life, we don't even realize that, when we go back and look at it from our adult perspective, that, wow, that really wasn't as scary as I thought, it was.
Exactly.
It's kind of like that David and Goliath, it's like, okay, I went back and I looked at that giant, issue or trauma or circumstance or memory, and it's not as scary anymore because I saw it from a new perspective, a new consciousness, with new eyes, so to speak. Exactly. So this is amazing. I'm so, happy that we got to come on here and talk about all of these really neat topics that are so pertinent to this day and time. And like you said, it's important for people now, pull away from the distractions as much as you can. Spend, if you're finding yourself spending a lot of time in front of the television or, watching the news, turn it off and go for a walk. Go sit outside, go tinker around in your garage or in your craft room, or, go do something that brings you joy. Do something that lifts your spirit, that lifts your soul. And in that, you will also find healing. So I think, it's important for all of us now it's almost like we have to disconnect or reconnect a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So thank you, Dyan. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close?
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I think it's just so important to keep raising awareness that if people are living in lots of stress, anxiety, agitation, or depression, the other end of the spectrum, doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. There's so many options and possibilities. We all get to live an amazing life. It takes a little bit of investment, but we get to do that. So thank you for being a voice of that.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. And if people want to buy your cards as well, are those on your website?
They aren't right now. They're on Etsy, but I can give you a link if you just look for the intuitive living cards on Etsy. They'll come up. Yes,
I will list on the YouTube channel. I'm going to list everything underneath the video, and then on the podcast, I'll list it in the description.
Great.
So I appreciate you coming on, and I send the audience so much uplifting, positive, healing energy.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.